Hey, I'm Bedell, and welcome to the Palisade tile installation video. Now these tiles are the perfect product to install in any laundry room, mud room, or as a backsplash behind the sink because they're waterproof and they have a super easy DIY installation process with their interlocking tongue and groove system that requires no mortar and no messy grout. And the best part about the Palisade tiles is that you can easily install it over your existing drywall, cement board, or even your existing tiles. Today I'm going to be installing these tiles as a full feature wall from floor to ceiling in this laundry room, and I'm also going to be using them as a waterproof backsplash behind the slop sink. Now the installation process could not be easier. It's a one-day project and I'm going to show you how to do it in just a minute. But before we get started, let's talk about some of the tools that you'll need to get the job done right. During the installation, you'll need to cut the Palisade tiles. You can do this using any type of power saw, like a jigsaw, a circular saw, a table saw, or a miter saw. And to cut around plumbing fixtures, you'll also need a drill with a bit and or a hole saw. But be sure if you're going to use any of these power tools to always wear proper eye protection. Now if you don't have the power tools, you can always use a sharp utility knife to score and snap the tile. You'll also be applying adhesive and sealant, so you'll need a caulk gun. There are several types of adhesives available on the market. You can visit Palisade Tiles' website for more information on how to choose adhesives and sealants for your project. You'll need a square, chalk line, tape measure, pencil, and a level. Before starting your layout, you'll want to determine whether or not you want to use one of Palisade's trims. Now they make a J trim like we're using here today in our design, an inside corner trim, and also an L trim that caps off the edge of your tile. Now you want to make sure if you are going to be using these trims, you want to glue them up well in advance and let the glue dry for 24 hours before starting your installation. Make sure that all of your surfaces are dry and clean and dust free so we get good adhesion from the tiles to the wall. The beauty of the interlocking system on all four sides is that it allows us to install the tile vertically, or we can turn it and install it horizontally, either in a stacked or brick subway pattern. It's very important that this first course of tile that we install is level along the top line. So we might have to make some adjustments to the bottom of this tile if the floor is not level, or in this case we have to make a notch cut around a couple of things and also a cut around an electrical socket. Before you get started with the installation of your first course, you want to make sure to trim off the bottom flange of all of the first course tiles so the tiles sit down flush to the surface. Because I have a notch cut here around this heating element, the first thing I'm going to do is place my first tile on the lowest point of the installation and make sure that it's level. And as you can see, we have a perfectly level surface that we're starting with. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the top of that line, and that is a level line that we're going to want to follow across the whole wall. This first course is going to want to be on that line at the top. Regardless of what we do here at the bottom, we can cut this whole thing out. But the top of our first course wants to be here, all the way across the wall. Now I can go ahead and figure out where my cuts are that I need to notch out of this first course of tile. We can also either snap a chalk line or take our level and mark a level line all the way across the wall. And that's critical because now our first course is going to be level, and that means every tile up the wall will remain level on that line. Now I can take these tiles outside, trim the first course of tile, come back in and dry fit it. Now that I've dry fit my first course, and as you can see we have the bottom of the first row of tiles trimmed off and it meets on my level line perfectly, we'll talk about the layout. Now again, as I mentioned earlier, you can orient these tiles vertically or horizontally, and obviously I'm doing these horizontally. And I'm going to do a brick or subway design, meaning that I'm going to stagger the joints like a brick. So the first tile in this course is going to be a half a tile, and then the next course going up will start out with a full tile, and you can see we're alternating those joints here just like a brick wall would be. And then we'll alternate that pattern every row up the wall. So now that I've dry fit this first course, we're getting ready to install it. But before I do that, because we have one more thing to do on this particular installation, there's an electrical outlet here that we have to cut out this hole before we can glue these tiles to the wall. So let me show you how to go ahead and make those measurements. So this is the tile we're going to be making that hole right in the middle of the tile. So I want to take the tile, take my tape, being sure that our tiles are pushed all the way back into the left channel, because we're always going to be working from left to right, and that's important to remember. I'm going to go ahead and measure from the inside joint of this tile to the edge of the electrical outlet, and also to the outside edge of the outlet. Next, transfer those inside and outside measurements to the tile using the tape measure. Then we use the square to mark the lines on the tile. Next, we get the measurements to the bottom and the top of the outlet, and like before, transfer those to the tile as well and mark the lines with the square. All right, now that I've got my hole marked out for the electrical outlet, we can take it outside, we can cut this out with a jigsaw. I'll bring it back in, dry fit this one more time, and then we can glue it permanently to the wall. Now that I've got the hole cut out for our electrical outlet, we can go ahead and dry fit this. And one more time, make sure that everything fits before we permanently glue it to the wall. So our outlet's in good position. We're back on our level line perfectly. Everything's sitting right. We can go ahead and dry fit our last piece. And we are looking perfect. Okay, so now we're ready to glue this whole first course to the wall, and then we can work our way right up the wall, repeating this process all the way up. So now we're ready to apply adhesive to the tile. We want to make sure we wipe down the tile first and make sure all the dust from the saw is off of it and it's clean and ready to glue. Now I'll take the adhesive, I'm going to make a 1/4 inch bead all the way around the perimeter of the tile and then fill in the middle. So going about a 1/2 inch back from the outside, put a nice heavy bead all the way around the tile, and then fill in the middle with an M pattern. Got the glue applied to the first tile, and we're going to go ahead and put it in. So it's important that we work this all the way down, flush to the bottom, and then we work it all the way in to the channel. Now we have a J channel trim already installed here. We're going to push it all the way into the trim, make sure we're down level to the surface. Working it into the channel, maintaining the level line, apply full pressure to the tile, and that's our first tile glued to the wall. If we were installing this in a wet location, that we would now at this point put silicone sealant on this joint before we connect our next tile to it. But because this is a dry wall, we're not near any dampness, we can go ahead and install our next tile and butt this interlocking joint right together. Apply pressure all the way across the tile, and we move on to the next. Now we come to the last tile in the row, and this is a little bit different than the others because we're going to be applying the glue to the substrate or the wall rather than the tile. So as you can see, I have some gloves on. It helps if you have a pair of rubber gloves on to pull this tile back into the track. So the same process as we did with the tile, we're going to do a nice bead all the way around the perimeter. And this is going to be a lot less messier than if we would have put the glue on the tile and then try to slide it onto the wall. So now the process with this last tile in the row is a little bit different. We want to take the edge of our tile and put it all the way into the track. We're going to slide our tile all the way down as far as it'll go and then push the tile to the wall. And as you can see, we have a little bit of a space here, right? And the idea for that is now that we can pull the tile back in and connect this gap and still have remaining end inside the track. And that's where the rubber gloves come into place because it gives you a little more traction. Okay, so maintaining our level line, we're inside the track, our joint is connected. We're going to apply full pressure to the tile, make sure it's adhered nice to the wall, and now that completes our first course. And as you can see, we're perfectly level on this first course, and that's the most important thing with your installation. So we can go ahead and cut the rest of our tiles and continue this process all the way up the wall. Now again, we're doing a subway or brick pattern with this design, which means we started the first course with a 1/2 tile, so our next course is going to start with a full tile. So we're going to put this into the channel, all the way into the channel. We're going to sit it down on top of our first course, making sure all of our joints line up. it's nice and tight and apply pressure all the way across the tile. Now that I've got the first tile adhered, we're gonna move on to the next one and work all the way across the second course. I'm just about finished installing this feature wall, and as you can see, it looks amazing. So when we come to the top row, you'll have to trim the top course of tiles, and I'm measuring here about 12 inches. So I'm gonna take all the top row tiles, trim them down to 12 inches, come back in and install them. And also I have a small piece I have to cut around this crown molding, which I can easily do with my jigsaw. The feature wall is complete and it looks great. Now it's time to switch over to the backsplash behind the sink. Now I'm going to install backsplash tile over the utility sink. And again, one of the beautiful parts about the Palisade tile is that you can actually install it right over your existing tile. They have an L trim that's designed to cap off the Palisade tile and cover your existing tile when you're finished with the installation, making for a very nice clean look. So the other thing that we'll want to decide on now before we get started with this installation is the inside corner. Whenever you have two walls that are going to meet together using the Palisade tile, you have an optional inside corner trim that is also finished to match the color of the tiles. Now, if you are going to use the inside corner trim, you'd want to glue this up and let the glue dry for 24 hours before you start your installation. We won't be using the inside corner trim today. We're just going to butt our tiles together tightly like these tiles are here, and then we'll go ahead and seal this back corner with some clear silicone when we're finished. All right, let's get started. After the first tile is glued in place, apply the recommended silicone sealer to all the tongue and groove joints. But don't skip this part, as it's very important in a damp or wet environment like a laundry room around the sink backsplash. Complete the gluing and sealing process of the rest of the panels. Now continue this process all the way up the wall. Assuming your corners are tight, we recommend using a clear silicone sealant and a caulk gun. You can run a bead of silicone in a corner quite easily. You can also tape the edges on either side of the tiles with painter's tape. That way you get a clean, smooth edge on either side of the silicone. Once the silicone is applied, you can use a damp rag or a finger to press it into the corner. Be sure to wipe off any excess right away. And there you have it, a full laundry room transformation with a beautiful new feature wall and a full sink backsplash using Palisade tiles. Now, for more information on all the great Palisade products, along with a full installation guide, check out their website at palisade-tiles.com.